This week, we welcome Chris Morales, Chief Information Security Officer at Netenrich, to discuss how digital transformation breaks risk management. In the leadership and communications section, the data your board actually wants to hear about when valuing cybersecurity investments. Cybersecurity is a CFO issue. Must-know insights when navigating the CISO career path, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
Broadcasting live, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. $270. That's the average number of times a company comes under cyber attack each year. And the average cost of a successful data breach is $4.35 million. Cygnus ensures your internal and external teams are securely connected, confident, in control, and compliant during a cyber crisis. Visit securityweekly.com/Cygnus to learn more. That's CYGNVS. If your organization is ready to embrace edge computing, we have good news. The 2023 AT&T Cybersecurity Insights Report provides everything you need to know to get started. In the report, we identify the common characteristics of edge computing. We found edge use cases are rapidly coming online, and we reveal how to secure edge computing. Most importantly, you'll learn how to prepare for your edge ecosystem. Get your complimentary copy of the report today by visiting securityweekly.com/ATT Cybersecurity. That's securityweekly.com/ATT Cybersecurity. Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 323, recorded October 9th, 2023. I am your host, Matt Alderman. Happy Columbus Day, which means Mr. Albuquerque's not here, and after the whooping the Patriots took yesterday, he's probably home licking his wounds. The Broncos looked no better yesterday, by the way, and Dak Prescott finally showed up and looked horrible as always. Sorry, guys, we always do the little football thing with Jason. I had to fill in since he was gone. Joining me for this episode, however, is my first co-host, Mr. Ben Carr. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Matt. How's it going? Kid turned 13 this weekend, so I'm stuck with all teenagers in the house now. So that's always a good time. And then, rough weekend with everything going on in Israel. So, thoughts are with everybody with everything going on over there right now. It's just rough. I'm sure everybody, being in the industry, we know a lot of people from Israel. So, just thoughts are with you.
Yeah, crazy. Filling in for Mr. Albuquerque, who probably has a little more insight to some of this, Mr. Josh Marpet. Welcome, Josh.
Absolute pleasure being here, as always. Going to be a fun interview. I got to tell you that. I'm looking forward to this one. And as for Israel, yeah, it's not good.
All right, folks, let's get into it. Security Weekly listeners, we are celebrating the milestone of reaching over 1,000 members of our CISO community. The Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum is a one-stop shop for executive collaboration comprised of CISOs across various industries. If you want to be part of this growing community of CISOs, join us as a member or a technology partner. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/cybersecurity collaboration. As an industry leader, Chris Morales oversees Netenrich's security vision and strategy as Chief Information Security Officer. He's well known and respected in security circles as an innovative leader and technical expert. Throughout his career, he has advised and designed incident response and threat management programs for some of the largest enterprises. Chris most recently led advisory services and security analytics at Vector AI. Chris, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Thank you. Glad to be here. And same thoughts on the Israel. I've been trying to track that this week. Like, there's never any good out of that thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, war is not good anywhere. I mean, we've been dealing with Ukraine for well over a year now. This is another unsettling space. So, yeah, definitely thoughts thoughts with everyone over in Israel right now. But let's try to put a positive spin on this. Chris, when you and I did our prep call for this interview, I wrote down one of the first things that came out of your mouth. The CISO job is broken, which is something we talk about a lot on this show. You want to start there? What do you mean by the CISO job is broken?
Wait. It's not broken at all. It just depends on what you consider the job description. If you consider the job description one of security, yeah, it's broken. If you consider the job description what it is, which is designated scapegoat, it's totally fine.
You know what? Fair enough. Everybody,
Sorry.
it's a fuse box job, isn't it? So something's got to break. That's you. There you go. So you're right. I'll frame it in that context then. I don't want to get fired or go to jail or have criminal charges. So how do I do that? Is that fair?
That's fair.
Fair, but not actually attainable most times. Like, yeah, the fired part seems to come up quite a bit when something goes down, even if it isn't your fault.
Yeah, that's absolutely a problem. And let me throw in that context then. I don't want to go to jail for negligence or not knowing what happened or hearing that, or to be fired because when something goes wrong, somebody goes, how did that happen? I'm going to pick on MGM because that's what you always do, right? So I asked myself this massive question that how is it to their credit, they have good security people, they spend on it, they've got all these controls. How was somebody able to make a phone call and take the whole company down for a week in every single system? Like who connected the elevator to the reservations, to the room key card, to the cash machines? Like who did that? Like, how did that happen? And that, to me, is the universal question, like not picking on MGM, because I think this is across the board. Like, who's making decisions on what's allowed and what's not allowed on these online systems? Like, and where is risk management in the room? Like, that's the premise of it.
Right.
Yeah, but
I can tell you who makes the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And
we know who makes the decision, right? The business makes the decision. The business says, hey, look, we can get a ton of efficiency, lower our costs, and get a lot of operational efficiencies here. We're going to connect all these systems together. We think that's a really, really great idea. The CISO's not in the room half the time. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, they're holding a ball of whatever from the business side going, well, wait a minute, why did we do that? I didn't know how to even put controls in place to protect against that. That's how this stuff starts to happen.
That's exactly right. And that CISO not in the room, I blame us as a security industry. Like, has anybody noticed that security is the only person with a negative language in any business unit? Like, we go in talking about threats. We go in and say, this is bad, and here's the problems. What I've noticed is when my CTO goes in and talks about risk, he talks about if I do this risk, your profits will quadruple. And that's very well probably the conversation they had that correlates to what you said.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? Oh, go ahead.
So, I mean, you're 100% right. We are the only one that says no. We're the only one that says, things are bad and horrible and they're just going to get worse. And we're like the evil, like Halloween's coming. We're the evil witch. Okay. But the problem is that, and I think, Matt, how long have we been saying this for? How many decades now? If you don't learn to communicate with the business in a business language, you're going to be treated as an outsider. And we are. How many C-level people report to other C-level people? Okay, CISOs typically do. This is inappropriate, in my opinion. There's so many reasons and ways. I mean, we could talk about this for probably days, so I'll shut up there for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I just want to call out like that. I'm following the train of thought, and I agree with it in general premise. But look, I think legal talks in a negative way, and no, we can't do that sometimes. Definitely the CFO. I've been in the room when the CFO says no quite a bit. But at the end of the day, for some reason, they've transitioned into a different area than the CISO has, and the CISO is still at the kids' table, not being given the latitude that they need to have the conversation and be part of the conversation. I mean, just being in the room to be part of it. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had myself or with other CISOs about, just can I sit in the room just to hear what's going on? How am I supposed to protect this entity if I don't have the full context of what's going on in the business? And I think that's the challenge. Like, just not even being part of the conversation, we start off with a huge handicap that's almost impossible to jump over.
The
I'm
CFO has
gonna
an unfair
go ahead. I'm
advantage.
sorry.
They have the money. I was going to say the CFO has an unfair advantage of having all the money.
Yeah.
So they can
Purse
do what they
strings.
want.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is
they can
true.
talk about budget shutdowns, right? Yeah.
They and apparently Congress at this current juncture. But I do want to talk about this from this perspective, because I remember when I was at RSA and we were working through some of the Archer messaging, we were talking about the flip side of risk being about opportunity. And so I guess, Chris, the question becomes like, how do we as security professionals flip the script from a negative risk conversation to a positive opportunity discussion?
Yeah. So in addition to that conversation on that point, I also want to, just to keep it on track of the original premise, I did say it's digital transformation broke risk management. And so the first state was that even under normal operating conditions, at least we kind of knew what was going on. I'd say since digital transformation, which I get it, we know that that could be a fax machine, that could be a phone, or that could be the cloud. So I'm talking about the cloud in particular. As we did digital transformation and critical applications in the business actually said, we're going to go run on AWS, Azure, and GCP. Somehow, by not being in the room and by that happening, I think risk management completely fell apart. And I say that because, let me take the most simple premise. What's the best-selling technology in security right now? EDR, is that right? It's the endpoint?
Probably close enough.
Yeah. How many endpoints are there in AWS?
Could be zero.
Wow.
And how do people have access to that?
Through
We're on it right
abstracted
now.
technologies. They don't have access to it directly console unless they're buying a specific form of AWS. They have they have access through an abstracted system, if that makes sense.
It does, but even more so, like, I think Zoom is on AWS. Somebody at Zoom can correct me, but I believe that what we're doing right now is using AWS.
Probably. I'll grant you that. I don't know. Probably.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm on Skype, so I'm using Azure, just for the record.
fair enough. Yeah, that does it.
Multi-cloud.
So the point of it is that it used to be, we built these whole processes. Every time I hear about, it's in the title. I don't like my title. It says Chief Information Security Officer. And I'm like, am I really securing information? Because the information is flowing freely, because that's the whole design of business now. Where when I had to go to, COVID really just accelerated. When I first went to a restaurant and they're like, we don't even have menus anymore. You got to pull out your phone and you got to scan a barcode. I was like, okay, the whole world's online now. So we're not thinking availability is what it comes down to. And if you think about information, it's not about protecting it. The information goes fast. I even propose that source code, when that gets stolen, because, Microsoft, it gets stolen, it seems like every other month, and we don't talk about it. Like, that's pretty dramatic. Microsoft's going to call me and say, that's not true. I don't care. The fact is it has gone, different pieces, people lose stuff, and people lose personal information. We know that every retail has probably been hit. All of us have lost our personal information. And it's not a question if you've lost it or not, it's how many times. For me, I think I've counted 4 times that my information has been compromised. It makes me ask, is that what we're protecting? What are you really trying to do? And does the business care? Because that's not how it makes money, because nobody's gone out of business. Everybody's stock increased. And the world hasn't ended. I mean, after Experian, when do we just get honest about it? So,
well, after OPM, Target, Experian, and everything else, everybody's identity. If you go on Have I Been Pwned and type in your, one of your 15 gazillion email addresses, and you're like, oh, I'm only in 70 breaches. Oh my God, that's awesome. And the world says that right now, it doesn't matter. Look at stock prices. Okay, I'm going to do your thing for you. Forgive me for a second, but look at stock prices. Your Target stock dipped by, I think it was 4 points or 4% or something, and then it was up over pre-hack members or pre-hack numbers within a few months. That's happening just about all the time. In other words, it doesn't affect your stock price. It doesn't affect your customer base. It doesn't affect reputation past, let's say, a few months or a year or two, which is recoverable. It is not destructive if you're a large enough company. If you're a small company, that may be, but a large enough company, they don't have to care as much unless there's a regulatory authority that's going to come down on them with the hammer of God. Okay, so what are we doing as CISOs and as security professionals when we say no? We're actually impeding business to the detriment of our bonus at the end of the year and our raise at the end of the year. And in reality, what are we holding off? Does it really matter? And somebody's like going, clutching their pearls and going, "Oh my God, he's not a security person." No, I'm a realist. And in business, security is massively secondary, if that.
That's exactly it. And yeah, you nailed it. And it's that's the point, right? So what does matter today is availability. What matters is that somebody can get information, that information is available, and they can do something with it, because the information is only valuable at the time of the transaction, and then it changes over time. And yeah, exactly that. If nothing's going wrong from losing information, why would they invite you to the room? When you never talk about availability, and then things like ransomware happen, which is also an availability issue, because that's literally the point of the ransom. So people are going down for not being available. Now you have to ask new questions. Why do we suck at that? Like, how is that still going on? And that's not something that we're addressing properly.
Oh, do you want an answer?
Because we're focused on confidentiality and integrity, maybe? Josh?
No, because we can't quantify the shit out of our own business. Because when the business leader goes, "Okay, tell me the possibility that this is going to happen to us this year or this quarter or this month or this week," and we go, when it comes to ransomware, we go, "You're probably going to get whacked this year." Okay, or somebody's going to attempt it at the very least. But our phishing scores are way down on our tests. Yeah, give me a friggin' break. It all takes is one. And they're not going to pay $1 million to somebody to install ransomware inside of our business. Pro tip, they will. It's already been tried. And we suck at explaining that this is not a matter of if, but when. We suck at doing risk quantification. We suck at actually understanding risk at a level where we can do it on a continuous basis. Sorry, you're going where I live. I've been working on a risk quantification standard for a while now. We suck at quantifying risk on a continuous basis to explain that this change that you made in the code just exposed us to $20 million worth of risk. Period. End of story.
No, we should talk after, because that's 100% the right answer to me. I think we haven't operationalized it and quantified. It is a risk quantification. I tell people that what we do today is basically shamanistic practices. It's equivalent to we're throwing bones on the ground and saying, this is something that you should care about. That's how I look. Entire security operations, 90% toil. Like so let me phrase it. The job of security operations shouldn't exist the way it does today. That should be greatly reduced. And we should be pivoting to using higher level skill sets. And that's sadly the same people. We're giving people with advanced degrees crappy jobs and ruining their lives. That's almost how I feel. Detection engineering,
that's a very succinct way to put that, and accurate at the same time. I agree with both Chris and Josh. And Chris, I want to go back to something you said is earlier. I believe, if we tie this together, why can't we pull this all together, right? Why are we unable to do that? Why is availability something that we can't get to? And Josh, you referenced risk quantification, and I think if you look at those two things, like, that requires a fundamental understanding of like what you have. I don't want to go back to asset management, but in a way, it's relevant to that. And you mentioned, Chris, this spread of the business taking over and saying, "Well, I'm going to take this to the cloud, and I'm going to deliver this," right? And there was a legacy way of doing IT, in which IT was responsible for all of the digital assets, and they delivered that, and they had they had a passing sense. I mean, asset management has always been a problem, but they had a passing sense of what they had that made up the estate, if you will, the real estate of the IT footprint. This is equivalent to going into a big box retail store and asking the loss prevention guy, like, what's our loss quantification here? How do we know how much, shrinkage we're going to have? And he goes, geez, I don't even have an inventory of what's on the shelves. I don't know. We don't go around the barcode scanner and actually inventory anything. We don't know what's out there. And so some guy just decided to stand up a new section of home goods in the store, and we don't sell home goods. Like, that's the core of the problem, where this genesis happens, and then everything else is a layer on top, right? That compounds the problem and makes it worse. Like, very large companies that you would think really understand what they have in their footprint, they don't.
Dude,
you guys disagree?
I could kiss you. No, you're 100% right. And look at Walmart. They have inventory scanners. They have barcode scanners. They know how much shrinkage they have. Okay,
but they don't know how many SaaS apps they have.
They don't, but and that's the thing. And by the way, they don't have shadow IT on the sales floor of Walmart because they lock down every damn thing that you can use on the sales floor of Walmart as an employee. We have shadow. We not only have shadow IT in the corporate world. We're starting to do something I'm calling shadow AI. When people are using personal devices to do AI work to get around the lockdowns they're having on ChatGPT and all of the other generative AIs. So we're seeing shadow work everywhere.
Well, and if you take this just a step further and think about what's going on in the real world right now, like, you go into a Home Depot, you can't buy a 10-foot piece of Romex without getting a guy to unlock the case. Yet we see a breach happening and we tell people something needs to be done because it's rampant in the industry, and people tell us, get out of our way, we're trying to do business here. So it's strange. Chris, you were going to say something.
Yeah, go down to the people thing. So how many jobs are available for threat detection versus how many jobs in security are available for an asset manager? Or I'll go further. How many people have actually seen an asset manager on a security team as a job?
There aren't. It's given to the IT team or some intern, some schlub, poor bastard who's like, all right, find out all. And now there's a Gartner category for it, CAASM, Cyber Asset Attack Surface Management. And, Axonius and Jupiter One and Run Zero are in there, along with a few others. And I just answered a poll on that the other day. And so there are companies that are actually coming out with products that you can buy right now to solve that problem. But the problem is like, how do you tell which assets are internet facing, which assets are internal only facing? How do you tell which assets are being used for what? How do you tell? You need API instrumentation, you need server instrumentation or container instrumentation. You need to instrument so many different things. And most security teams and IT teams are of their problem is very simple. They're up to their ass in alligators. And it's really hard to think about draining the swamp when you're up to your ass in alligators.
And even if you get that information, then how do you instrument the value in a complex system with the interconnections, right? So then you can't tell risk without value. So, I mean, those are the two things that are massively broken and have been broken for a long time in the industry.
Ben, we've got a guest. We should actually let him talk once in a while. I'm sorry.
This is way better. I love it that you guys are. It's like, this is all 100% what I think about it. It actually helps me. So I like it. I have Jupiter One, by the way. It's and let me tell you what, Gartner's breaking it by calling asset management a group as opposed to a function. I think every security tool is going to have to do asset management to work. It's not, you can't buy an asset management tool. You have to have a value function, and it has asset management as the basis of the tool. An example is, I'm not going to try to plug them, but I will. But Jupiter One, I bought for GRC, and I'm doing security policy as code. That's the problem they solve for me, and it's really good at it. I have 4 other tools that are asset centric to do other jobs as well. Everything has to think that way, and they do all connect. But I realize that trying to understand that problem changes for every use case. Some tools might do more than one, but I don't think there is some catch-all. Here's an asset tool, then here's another one, and they plug. I think we have too many damn tools to begin with, so I'll leave that one too.
Have you seen, by the way, have you seen the Cyber Defense Matrix?
Yeah.
Cyber Defense Matrix?
Yes, Anil Yu's work. He's actually at Jupiter One, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he
And
is.
he wrote Cyber Defense Matrix. The first box in the damn thing is detect applications and data and all the different types of things that you have. Look at cyberdefensematrix.com, I think it is. Really, really good stuff. Although some of the links are broken now. Hey, Sunil, fix it, okay, man? And he said, look, you have to do this cybersecurity framework: detect, defend, respond, recover, blah, 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 against data, applications, people, users, etc. And so you need to detect all of your data. You need to detect all of your applications. You need to detect all of your users. Effectively, asset management. And you have to do all of the categories for all of the categories. So it's a matrix. That's why they call it the cyber defense matrix. I know, crazy.
So Chris, why is the
sorry.
spread there? No, I was just gonna, like, in what you're saying, and getting back to kind of the core fundamental issue here, and we talked about kind of the spread. Chris, I'm wondering why is this acceptable in security and IT, but it's not acceptable in any other part of the org? Like, how would it be if, as the CISO, I said, hey, I'm just going to go hire some shadow staff, but I'm not going to involve HR. Like, don't ask about it. Not going to handle any of the HR policies. Just gonna do that. Oh, and I'm gonna open up a bank account, and we're going to store money over in here. We're not going to talk to the CFO. Why is it acceptable in the other areas of the business, but it's not acceptable for us? Like, I don't understand that.
Well, that's because they transformed to the reality of now, and security didn't. That's why it's broken. The reality is that the iPhone happened. Personal consumerization happened. SaaS happened. All these things culturally happened. And it's kind of like, you know what? It's exactly like when Napster happened. Yeah, I'll go back that far. People started downloading music, and the reaction of Sony and everybody else in the music industry was to sue a bunch of little girls and boys for downloading music, when all that was happening is digital transformation of the way people want to consume music, which is literally the entire music business today. The early impetus was sue them as opposed to enable them. And we don't have that problem in the same way as before. Now they figured out that this is a business model. Is the problem with security is that we even call it security. It's just risk advisory. We advise risk. We don't actually tell them what to do. The business units have the risk. They simply need advice that when they take these risks, what does it mean? How does it help them? What is not going on? And we need to be more positive about it. So that's, to me, it's like, it doesn't matter what the business units do. We can't ask them to do what we want. We need to adapt and know what they do. And they get SaaS. And, I had this problem internally. Our HR went and got some app that did something, and I only noticed it because it sent out to me, and it has a chat bot in it. And the minute I got that chat bot on like a message I had, I stopped and I started to do a deep inquiry and ask them questions. And we asked them, instead of saying you can't do that, I said, we'd like to come in and help manage it for you and assess it, and let's make sure everything's good. And they said yes to that. Because what I didn't do is say, you're totally wrong, you can't do this, because it's already happening, so it doesn't matter. So what's the point, right? So we're not, as a industry, we haven't caught up to the speed of business. We're not aligned at all. We're doing things the way we think. Like, so risk management, what do we do? Business impact analysis yearly. We do some SOC audits yearly. Like every year, we're trying to figure out what our risk is, but in dev and everybody else, they're buying SaaS on their credit card in a department instantly. People are spinning up and spinning down servers in real time. Like, does somebody know how many backup copies there is of every image of every Kubernetes that's in their AWS? Is it 5? Is it 10? Do you know it has the same data on it? Like, we're not real time is what it comes down to. I proposed a concept of operational risk management. So I know that's kind of a thing, but they took it for fraud prevention. But so I don't know the right words. I'm not good at naming things, but we need like an adaptive risk management that's like real-time operational analytics that is using quantitative risk analysis versus just a qualitative human approach. And that's why all SOCs are broken. People can't make those decisions.
Oh, I really want to Okay, so the problem is you're talking about the fact that we can do this with enough Monte Carlo simulations and scenarios, but we can only do it on a static basis. Doing it on a dynamic basis so that we can do dynamic risk pricing, trademark. Just kidding, I haven't trademarked it, but it's my damn term. Is something that is still at this moment impossible unless you want to run a fair institute calculation on a constant basis. And the problem with that is understanding the changes that go on in an organization are almost impossible to keep track of on a regular basis unless you have an extremely mature change control system and schema and ticketing system and everything else. You're just not going to do it. So you need to have asset management. You need to have information inventory management. You need to have change management before you can even start to do risk quantification. And then when you try to do continuous risk quantification, that is a whole order of magnitude more difficult to understand what risks you're bringing in, leaving, residual, whatever. And it's not easy. And then bringing that, now, by the way, I do think that cyber insurance will be going that way over the next few years, because if all of a sudden you stick an any rule in your firewall, your cyber insurance should go up by about 5,000%. Okay, let's be clear. But if you don't do that, then your cyber insurance should be fine. As soon as it comes out, the cyber insurance comes down. But how does somebody keep track of all that and give you a quantification on all the various categories of your risk without being fairly damn intrusive?
Yes. Yes to all of it.
Sorry,
It's
this is fun for me.
No, it's fun. It's I think, honestly, I think a lot of people get stuck in what's in front of them, and it's a lot easier. And there's too much of I just want to make sure it wasn't my fault and I'm not accountable, as opposed to just being accountable.
Well, it's very clear that the responsibility and the accountability really doesn't lie with the CISO right now. I mean, what you guys have just described is a combination of an asset management system with a continuous controls monitoring capability that does risk quantification that all comes together to solve this problem. And these are three areas we have sucked at as an industry.
Well said. Well said.
Right? Because we're really good at endpoint detection, response, and SIM and SOAR and all that. But the things we just described are the things we talk about like every week on this show that we have not done well.
So information security is ADHD personified. We can deal with the thing in front of us right now, but we can't plan, we can't enable, we can't do things longer term. We are so information security is on the spectrum as an industry, effectively.
Well, what I even heard, Chris,
so I'm going to use it.
Yeah, Chris, I even heard you say it's not about information, it's about availability. It's the chief availability officer, and that role probably sits with the CIO or the CTO. Like, does a CISO role even need to exist? I think you actually said that. Like, if it is about availability, and then it's about uptime and resilience, and that may be a completely different role than a CISO.
So that's an incredibly good question. What I said a second ago is you didn't trademark the ADHD is security thing, so I can use it, right? Because you didn't.
Sure, go for it, man. Go, just attribute it, okay? Just attribute it.
Okay. So I think what's happening is the CIO is becoming the CEO because business is becoming digital. Yep. The CTO is becoming the CISO because he's the only one who could actually do anything anyway. And the CISO has an opportunity to be the CIO. And I say opportunity because it needs to be the CIO, which is the asset problem. And they need to start thinking about secure practices and process as opposed to security technology. It's like, let's build, if the CIO is deciding here's the future of the business because it's all making those big technology risks, like we're going to bet on this, the CISO has to think, great, we're going to do that. And I'm going to, here's the approach to do it that manages our risk properly. And the CTO is the one who's actually going to react to security in the end anyway. So if we do it right, that's what happens. It's a shift.
I agree and disagree, and I'm going to tell you why. And the real reason is because right now the CISO is not making the choices. The reason you have a C in your name is you're an officer of the company, your chief blah, blah, blah officer, okay? And the CISO does not make the choices. Done right now, this is not your potential where we're moving to, but right now a CISO's job done properly is to present options to the leadership of the company, and they make the choice. Okay, which is why right now I don't think a CISO should have a C in their title. I know it's just horrible and everybody's going to hate me, but considering that CISOs typically do not report to the CEO and they typically do not make choices for the company, they present options. They should be a director level or a EVP or I don't know, depends on
or whatever.
Yep. What's that?
I do say they need to be. I agree with you. Like that's what should happen. I do report to the CEO, by the way. That was one of my requirements to even do the job.
Bravo.
The CTO and I are, so I collaborate with the CTO on everything, and that's also what makes it work. I've actually, when I started, what I did is I split shared duties with the CTO and VP of engineering and simply said, you have to help manage this. And I made them accountable with me, and we solve everything in that way. Directly to
you know
the CEO.
RACI charts, don't you? Do you know how many security people don't know RACI charts? Okay, sorry.
I do. No, I do. That was
Do
the
you know how
first
many
thing.
business people don't know RACI charts?
Don't get me started.
We're going to have a whole segment now on RACI charts, gentlemen, because it's going to have to be a say easy, do hard segment somewhere in the future. Because
I'm there.
I agree with you.
Chris, I do like the premise, though, right? Is the CISO role has to evolve. I think you laid out a really interesting path for the CISO and how we address availability through the CTO role. We're a little over, so I want to respect time. But Chris, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Absolutely. I enjoyed this more. It's nice to hear other people already have strong opinions on it, and I'm not crazy. Or maybe I am, and you guys are too. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's probably more likely.
We've been working for Security Weekly for a while, so we're all probably a little crazy somewhere. But thank you again. We're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.